Hello and welcome to Right to Speak. I'm Kevin Mills, and with me today I have a very good friend. He is also my co-hosting partner on the Investor Guys podcast. Everybody, please welcome Bill Barnett to the show. Bill, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Kevin. It's man, I've been looking forward to doing this.
We've
This
been
is going to be
talking about it for a while.
Yep.
Bill and I, if you aren't familiar with our Investor Guys podcast show, it is a show about real estate. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending upon how you look at it, we often get off onto a political tangent in one direction or another. Bill and I are like minds as far as what is going on in our political arena today, as are most of you people who are watching us. Bill is excited to come and just banter back and forth about everything that's going on. And I think Bill's concern, as well as mine and most of you out there, is that the left has just lost their damn mind. They cannot get a grasp on reality. They cannot see truth. If truth came up and bit them in the butt, they would not know it because CNN or MSNBC would say, no, that's nothing. That's a coronavirus nip. Bill, what is your take on everything that is going on in our world and in our country today?
I'm going to say several different things about that. I think an action that I took a couple of months ago, about 6 weeks ago, I guess, defines my take on what's going on. I have been and continue to be a strong proponent for the Second Amendment. I raised my kids that way and didn't have any guns. And I said, look, in fact, my oldest son said, well, I thought you don't have any guns. I said, I don't. And he goes, well, how does that work? And I'm like, it's my right to. The Second Amendment gives me that. It's my personal decision whether I go buy one or not. That's a me thing. Well, that changed about 6 weeks ago when our city started being burnt down and there was nothing being done by these Democratic mayors and governors to prevent that. And everybody wants to blame the president, especially the left. The way the laws are written, the president has to be asked, or the federal government has to be asked to come in and help. They just can't go in there and do that. Now, they did a really smart thing in Seattle and Portland where they went in it may be both. It may only be one or the other, but they federally deputized basically state troopers. And once they federally deputized them, then they were like, okay, we got boots on the ground. And we can go in and stop. It's the same thing they did in Kenosha, went in and put a squelch with that quickly, however they did it there. But look, it got so crazy, I said, I'm going to go out and purchase a firearm, which I did, got a concealed carry, done training, all that stuff that you have to do. I was raised with firearms. We just got out in the country, just go shooting. Hey, what are we going to do? Well, let's go shooting.
And think about a government, okay, or an incumbent government that wants to allow rioting and looting and murder and destruction of property in the streets and wants to tell the American citizen, the American public, you can't have guns to defend yourself. We're going to push this agenda where we're going to burn down America to prove a point, but you can't have guns. We want to take your guns away. So moving forward, if you elect us, this is what you can expect more of, but we're going to take your guns away. If you have an ounce of sense in your brain, whether or not you are pro-guns or not, you have to be able to see that writing on the wall that we are in for changes. No matter what happens come this next election, things are not going to change. We may flip the script a little bit in one direction or another, but things are not going to change. And this is an awakening for those of us who can see reality, who can see clarity. Unfortunately, for those people who are being hoodwinked and propagandized by mainstream media, it's unbelievable. And I made this point to somebody the other day. If we had more patriots in America like we used to, if we had more patriots, we would not be going through what we're going through right now. The left hates America. And that is not a talking point from the Trump campaign. That is not a talking point from the right. That is something that we can see. They are trying to tear down our history. They are trying to demonize the founders of our country, the founding fathers of our country. They are saying that America is wrong. America has done this wrong. America has done that wrong. America cannot do anything correctly, and we need to tear it down so that we can build up the correct America. Patriots do not think that way.
Yeah. Here's a news flash. America did not create slavery.
No.
I'm just...
slavery was around for tens of thousands of years.
I have
before America became a country.
And apparently a lot of people that are talking about that never read their Bible. Because if you pick your Bible up, you can get a lot of stories about slavery from beginning to end. Doesn't make it right. And I'm not saying that, not a proponent of slavery. But enough's enough. And just when I thought there's no possible way California could do anything any more stupid than the
pedophile law that they passed 2 weeks ago.
Then they start, they've now, I'd heard that Newsom signed the reparations bill, but that reparations are in play. And I'm like, this is the most insane thing.
So far, he has not signed the reparations bill. What they did was they established a committee to decide whether reparations were appropriate or not. And we already know from what Kamala Harris and others and the Democratic camp have said is that they feel that reparations are important. And reparations is a whole topic that we'll get into as soon as we come back from this next break. Bill, I'll see you on the other side in just a minute. And we are back with Right to Speak. I've got my good buddy with me, Bill Barnett. And just before we went on the break, we were talking about reparations. And all I'm going to say is if reparations are going to be paid out, put my name on the list, okay? Yeah. I am not a descendant of a slave, but I have family members who died fighting the war to free slaves. I have people who voted for Abraham Lincoln, who was the president who decided to free slaves in my family. I am just as entitled to any reparations for that era in our history as anybody else. And that is really where you have to say, and maybe these are things that the committee is going to find out that Governor Newsom has started, is who deserves reparations? Is it every single person of color in America? Is it every single person who ever suffered from slavery in their past? Because in the Roman times, it didn't matter your color. You could be a slave if you owed money. You could be a slave if you were captured in war. You could be a slave for having to pay off your crimes. It didn't matter who you were. How far back does this reparations go?
One of the things that, the reason that America, one of the many reasons America exists is because one of the things that we did when this country was formed is say you could not be put into jail and forced to become an indentured servitude for non-payment of your debts. Of course, taxes are a different thing, but if you have a civil debt, you bought a car, you can't be thrown in jail because you couldn't pay for it. They take the car back, but they can't throw you in jail for that. Well, that was not the case in England when all of this was going on, when the American Revolution was being fought. That was not the case here. Those things did happen until after the Revolution. And so this kind of stuff has gone on throughout history. And by the way, it goes on all over the world today, not so much about debt, but slavery is a giant issue. And it really frustrates me. If we're going to focus on slavery, then let's focus somewhere where slavery exists. And I'm sorry, LeBron James, you don't qualify.
Yeah, and it's sad that slavery does exist. There are still slave markets in Libya to this very day, and there are people being bought and sold and murdered because they are slaves. I think that is something that we need to focus on more. And I'm going to let that lead us into BLM, okay? Whenever you have to put the word, a color in front of the two words lives matter, then you know you're talking about a racist organization. If I'm going to say white lives matter, or I'm going to say yellow lives matter, or I'm going to say brown lives matter, those are racist statements. It is just as racist to say black lives matter. All lives matter. And if you want to take up that banner of Black Lives Matter, you need to be clear and focus on that. How many Black lives do we have being lost day in and day out in cities like Chicago, cities like Baltimore, cities like Detroit, where we have more Black on Black crime than any other type of crime in those cities? And those real problems, those real Black lives don't seem to matter to the organization Black Lives Matter.
Look, all you got to do is go to their website. If you go to Antifa.com, if you go to BlackLivesMatter.com and read what they say they are about. Don't take my word. Don't take Kevin's word. Don't take CNN's word. Go yourself. And by the way, I don't know that CNN's ever done that, but go yourself to their website and read their declaration as to who they are and what their intentions are.
They have their agenda laid out on their website. Now, they have changed it a little bit to tweak it a little bit in the last couple weeks. There are some things that they removed and some things that they added. Their basic core belief, and they will tell you this on the website, they are Marxist. They do not believe in a nuclear family. They do not believe that a father is necessary in a family setting. Their agenda,
capitalism.
Yeah, their agenda is to change our society to a Marxist socialist society. And by the way, you suggested that people go to Antifa.com. How can Antifa not be something and have a website? Bumbling Joe Biden in the debates denied that Antifa even existed. Why does something that doesn't exist have a website? Why does something that doesn't exist have shirts that say Antifa? Why are they organized in handing out shields and weapons and banners if they don't exist? People need to use common sense. I don't understand how you can allow yourself to be so brainwashed that you can't see the reality that's right in front of your own face. And Bill, this is the exact same thing that happened in Nazi Germany. This is the exact same thing that we see happening in every socialist society. Media plays a role in delivering propaganda, and they brainwash the people who are too lazy to go out and get the truth, too lazy to go out and look for the stories. And in this day and age, that is such a shame, because it is so simple to go to the internet and do a search and find the actual story, find the actual interview, find the actual sound bites, find the actual news conference, whatever it is that's being reported on, that's being reported unfairly, that is being made up, that is being twisted to mean something else. Do the research for yourself. There's no excuse. You can't take a few minutes. Turn off CNN, turn off MSNBC, turn on your computer and start doing the search for yourself. And stop going to propaganda media websites. And I'm not telling you to go to Fox. Fox has got their share of propaganda as well. I'm telling you, go to the sources, go to the AP, go to the Newswire, go to Associated Press, go to UPI, United Press International. Look at their raw feeds, and they have multiple raw feeds on the same story. Read them and look at what is coming in and make your own decisions. You don't have to think like me. You don't have to think like Bill. You don't have to think like the right. But I want you to at least be able to think for yourself based upon reality and based upon fact. We're going to come back in just a second, Bill, and we're going to have our last segment. I'll talk to you just a minute. And we are back for Right to Speak. With me today, I've got my good buddy, Bill Barnett, and I have been talking an awful lot, Bill. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you for a little bit. Go ahead and tell us what you think is the biggest problem right now, not with America, the biggest problem that we have going into our next election with people being able to see the truth. And if you think there is a solution, if you think that there might be a problem that can be solved moving forward that we could apply our efforts to.
Yeah, gosh, there's such a myriad of things headed into the election. Probably the number one that I'm most concerned about is the massive amount of voter fraud that we're going to see in certain states because of the mail-in ballots. And It's never worked. And suddenly, 2 months out, when all this really kicked up from the election, um, it's not going to suddenly work now because of coronavirus. It's going to be infinitely worse now. And I I just scratch my head with voter ID. I look at that and the left says, oh, that's about voter suppression. Oh, really? So I don't know, pick any one of 1,000 things in this country that you have to show your ID to be able to do. If you have to walk into a bar, if you go into a bar, you're going to get carded sometimes. I've been carded and I just crack up and I'm like, you're kidding, right? Um, there's no possible way you think I'm underage. You may think I'm overage, but you don't think I'm underage. And the response was in a couple of different establishments, that's our policy. We do that with everybody. That's to buy a drink. Go get on an airplane without having not just an ID, but having a state registered ID that is exactly the same as the way you have your name listed on your ticket. Got to be exactly the same. You got to show an ID to do that. So when the left starts raising all this cane about voter suppression because we're asking for ID, that really concerns me. That why is that a problem? It should be, and I hope that if we get through this thing and President Trump wins, that one of the things that he does is he writes an executive order or gets somebody. Now, if we can, there's a red wave, and gosh, who knows? I go 1 minute from thinking there's going to be a red wave to thinking, we're screwed. This thing that we call America is over with. And if Trump doesn't win, I can promise you it is. This is the single most important. Kevin and I are shall we say, age-wise anyway, mature adults.
Yeah,
we've been through the
in the same age bracket, more or less.
Yeah, many times. And this is I have felt the last couple were important. I felt the 16 at that time was the single most important election up until that date. And this one makes 16 pale by comparison in my eyes. Please go out and vote. Vote your conscience, vote your heart, whatever you need to do. But get out there and vote. And it should not be an issue with showing an ID to vote. And of course, it should be an issue with going out there. One of the great comments that I've heard from, I think Grassley said it, but one of the Republican senators said, hey, you know what? If we want them to go vote in person, then let's just say that's where you get your stimulus check and suddenly everybody will show up. So we've gone so totally insane over the coronavirus. And I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, it doesn't exist. Oh, it's not dangerous. But it is every single year. People die of the flu. They finally have started using the term excess morbidity, which means that every single year there are a certain number of people that die in the U.S., period. The last number that I saw came out from 2018, where there were over 7 million people in the U.S. died through the course of the year from all kind of stuff. People die every day. And so now they're starting to finally talk about excess morbidity. What is the natural rate of people dying, period, every day? And do we have more deaths than that? And if we do, is it because of coronavirus and stuff? There's not near the number of cases that are being talked about. And look, cases are not the important thing. Hospitalizations are important, and certainly mortality is important. But the fact that there's a lot more cases, how many people get the flu every year? How many people get a common cold every year? So I get frustrated when all the focus on the media, but it's part of their agenda, is that, oh, cases are on the rise, cases are on the rise, cases are on the rise, when in fact they are. And in fact, mortality is going down.
Yes, it is.
People should be focused on that. We're still over 99% survival rate for this, and we are destroying the greatest country that has ever existed on this planet over a virus that's 99% survivable. That's pretty interesting.
And we only have another minute or so before we have to wrap up, but President Trump caught the coronavirus. We learned about that on Friday. And he is, for all intensive purposes, as far as we can hear today, he's probably going to be going home to the White House. Good news for Donald Trump. Many of the other people who also caught the coronavirus, the same trend that Donald Trump did as well, are staying at home. They're getting it over on their own. They didn't go to the hospital. Obviously, I'm glad that they're taking the president to the hospital and keeping an eye on him. But Kelly McEnany, again, today, actually, I don't know if you heard this because it actually broke just before we got on the show. Kelly McEnany announced that she tested positive this morning for the coronavirus. Again, that same circle, she said she has not exhibited any of the symptoms or anything else. She's going to stay at home. She's going to quarantine. She's going to do her work from home. She's an essential person, obviously, to our country as well as to the Trump campaign. But most people are going to get through this. And that is really what we need to keep in mind. I'm not recommending that you go out and not wear your mask or anything else, but most of us are going to get through this if we catch this virus. There are a few people who are at risk factors. Those are the same people who are at risk of catching the flu and dying from the flu. This doesn't really change the landscape of our country other than it adds one more flu-like disease to our repertoire of diseases that seem to be coming out on a regular basis. Blame it on whatever you want. But we cannot live our lives in fear, and we cannot shut down a country, and we cannot shut down a world, and we cannot shut down an economy, or else we will perish as a nation. We will perish as a people if we have no way to make a living and we have nothing to trade because we've shut down our country. Bill, thank you for joining me today on Right to Speak. I'll have you back again. It's been a lot of fun.
Let's do that, yeah.
The rest of you, thank you for joining me. We'll see you again. And remember, get out and vote. Remember that you have the power to change America to the way it needs to be, the way it used to be. Thank you.